Anyways, today I was looking at this, and um, this is just hockey cards on a board. I put this on my wall once. I got the cards at a flea market locally. The cards were in great condition, so it didn't really matter. And it was just that it was older cards, and there was a lot of my favorite players in there. And the guy's like, I don't know, I think he said like $4 for the box, and I'm like, of course, because I was married at the time, I had to go and ask for $4. Fucking bullshit. Send me in there now. I'll have $4. Yeah. Oh fuck yeah, whatever. I'm such a man. Anyways, but it's funny because this went up my wall and my ex hated it. My kids didn't understand either. A lot of memories on this wall. Now, you've got Jeremy Roenick back. I liked him, which was pretty much his rookie year, or close to it. I think that was 94. Keith Tkachuk with the Jets. That's some classic there. Mike Gartner with the Rangers. Patrick Roy before the trade, so when he was in Montreal. Theron Fleury in Calgary before all of his personal drama became the big thing with him when he was still just known as Theron Fleury the Star. There's Tony Tanney when he played for Buffalo. And it's the Tony Tanney, the Trevor Linden in New York with the Islanders jersey on. Jeff Cortnell, that's his rookie card actually from St. Louis. Oh, year after. Petrus Krico in Boston, where his career ended. Rick Vive in Buffalo. There's Sakic, Nolan, Tugnut, one of my all-time favorite goaltenders who just never played for a team that won, so his stats sucked. Kirk McLean, Andy Moog. Right down here is Andy Moog. He's my all-time favorite goaltender. Based on Stanley Cup final in... No, that wasn't the final. It was the Adams Division final in... I want to say 90. I want to say it was 90 when the Bruins went to the final. And Montreal's got the puck right in front of the net. And Moog just turns and pushed the net off. He didn't even try to make it look like anybody bumped him. He turned around and just pushed the fucking net off. Like 2 seconds before the puck went in. Referee waves the goal off. Boston goes down the ice and scores. In overtime and wins the game. My dad was so angry. Yeah, I'm like, did you see that great play by Andy Moog? Said, did you see Moog save the game? And he's like, he pushed the net off. I'm like, damn straight he did. Nobody saw him do it. Except all of Canada was yelling at him, and I'm cheering for him. There's Jenny Savard. Nick Lidstrom. This was near his rookie year. Brett Hull, who increasingly won my respect during his career. Ovechkin's following that same trajectory. There's Ed Belfour with Dallas. He looks like he's engaged in the play, so before he decided he wanted to be traded. Mario Lemieux. It looks like he's engaged just before he lost his smile and decided to retire. Dale Hunter. Dale Hunter was my all-time favorite player at one point. I love the guy. And then the Turgeon hit happened, and I couldn't again. There's Gretzky. It's a postcard, so from like catalogs or whatever. Pavel Bure, another Mario Lemieux. Gretzky with the Kings. There's Ray Bourque, my all-time favorite player. Teemu, that's his rookie year. Peter Stastny in Jersey. Doug Wilson, current GM of the Sharks. So when Sharks fans are downvoting my videos, I got Doug Wilson on a fucking board from when he played for your team. Stop downvoting my videos. Joe Mullen, when he played with Boston, I think he lasted 7 games. I don't know. But I like Joe Mullen. Mike Modano, who's my all-time heroes. Jerome McGinley. While I wasn't a Flames fan, I had to admit he was a beast. Paul Kariya. It's criminal Kariya doesn't have 1,000 points. It's criminal he was forced to retire due to injury early. And that's why you have head injuries policed the way they are now. Because Paul Kariya should be at 1,300 points, like an all-star, perennial All-Star and ultimate Hall of Fame, blah, blah, blah. And he's not really mentioned in Hall of Fame circles. And I think that's a shame. There's Yager with Pittsburgh. This is a retro card. This is back about 10 years ago. And they're like, hey, here's a retro from Yager. The card itself is retro. Dale Hawerchuk with Buffalo, which I thought was nice. I always thought it was nice when he went from Winnipeg to Buffalo that the jersey color didn't really change. Might have confused him. There's Tugnut again. Tugger with his Ottawa jersey on. His arm in the air. I'm number one. I had no argument with that. Tugger was great. Steve Yzerman. Cam Neely. Beast. Always. Adam Oates. My buddy. Always called him my buddy, Adam Oates. Nobody wore a Bruins jersey and looked automatically like a Bruin faster than Adam Oates. Remember when they traded for him? I couldn't contain my excitement. I was so happy. I didn't care what it cost. And then when I heard that fucking loser Craig Janney was gone, I just hit the roof. Like I was so happy. Craig Janney was gone out of Boston. I wouldn't have to yell at my TV anymore. And now I had my buddy Adam Oates to cheer for. He wasn't playing with Brett Hull anymore. I didn't like Brett Hull, but I loved Adam Oates. And now he was going to be feeding the puck to Neely. And I called it. The year before, I said to my friends at school, I said, you know what? I said, Neely's going to score 50 and 50. And they're all like, whatever. You're such a Bruins fan. You cheer for the Canucks, just the Canucks, you know. You just like to cheer for lots of teams just because, you know, that way you can say your team's winning. And like, it's just stupid. Okay, there's Peter Forsberg. I think that's his rookie year. Close to it. Mark Recchi. That's got to be close to a rookie card right there. That's 90, 91. Paul Coffey with Pittsburgh after Edmonton got tired of him. Belfour. That's close to a rookie card. Curry. Erie Curry. Like I have to specify which Curry. Patrick Roy once he was traded to Colorado. Pierre Turgeon. I kept him as far away from Dale Hunter as possible. That way the card won't just magically get knocked down every time I go to work. Scott Stevens. I have Stevens right under Turgeon. I'm surprised that hasn't happened yet. Doug Lidster right underneath there. Lidster's ready to fall off. Mark Messier, Oilers card there. Mark Howe with Detroit. He retired with Detroit. That was fantastic that he did that. Igor Larionov. I'll talk about him in a bit. Brian Trottier. I talked about smart players. Okay. And I talked about how you evolve your game as you get older. Brian Trottier is the ultimate example of that. Here's a guy who was a beast with the Islanders, scored 100 points a year. He was a top center in the NHL. He was one of the most intimidating guys in the league. Plays with Pittsburgh. Plays a checking role. Doesn't score anymore. Is no less intimidating because he's so damn smart. He's so good on faceoffs. He thinks the game so well. And it's weird to me that he wasn't a more successful coach. There's Cam Neely again because you have to have two Cam Neelys on the board, especially if there's two Patrick Roys. Sergei Fedorov because it's Fedorov. Fedorov was big for a while there. And then I ended with Martin Brodeur over here. Brodeur's stats were always pumped up by the fact he played with the Devils. So, yes, Brodeur is one of the best of all time. But in terms of him actually being the best of all time, I would say Patrick Roy. But I made a list today. I got bored. I was thinking about players that drive me nuts. And I was thinking about players that I like. And I got looking at that board too. And it's a different list. So I sat down. I sat down with a paper I got from the ambulance telling me, hey, here's a receipt for your tax records. Not for me, it was for my kid, like 2 months ago. I've got the basketball game on Golden State's winning by 9. I still think Cleveland's going to win it. I got a funny feeling. It's so hard to get up 2-0 against Cleveland. So, all right, my favorite Canucks, and I had to say, you know what? I'm just going to do 12 forwards. So I was going to do 4 lines and get cutesy with it, but honestly, I can't. And I had to just restrict it to my favorite that I've watched. Meaning, it doesn't matter if Orland Kurtenbach was fantastic, or Andre Boudreau was fantastic, or Dennis Rivergate played great. I didn't watch those guys play. I didn't see Bill Derlego in a Vancouver jersey. I have no idea. If I didn't watch the guy play, I can't put him on my list of all-time favorite players. Now, same goes for my all-time unfavorites. If I didn't see them play, then I can't shit talk them. Although on my frustrating list, it's not just because I don't like them. Some of them I actually like quite a bit. I'll explain it a bit. All right, so my favorite Canucks, 12 forwards. I got Marcus Naslund, of course. Trevor Linden, of course. The Sedins, of course. Jeff Courtnall. I always hear a lot of talk about best all-time Canucks, and Jeff Courtnall scored a lot of key goals for them over the years. And when Jeff Courtnall was released into free agency, and the Canucks didn't seem to make more than a half-ass attempt to keep him, I was really upset. And I was really upset because they also lost Cliff Ronning. And my heart sank when those two guys left Vancouver. Like, it hurt me. Ronning and Courtnall were the guys we got from St. Louis. It was the robbery, and I felt they were going to retire as Canucks. I genuinely felt Courtnall and Ronning were going to retire as Canucks, and they were getting shipped out because they wanted to make changes just to make changes. Brendan Morrison's in here. Morrison was always better suited as a number 2 center, not a number 1. He was miscast as a number 1 center because he had good chemistry with Naslund and Bertuzzi for a year. Oh, everybody talks about the West Coast Express era. It was a season and a half. Outside of that, they were usually broken up, or just the chemistry wasn't quite where it should be. Also, my top 12, I have Greg Adams. Gus Adams, when he was let go as well, it gutted me. I call him Gus because there were 2 Greg Adams for a little while on the Canucks, and it got a little confusing. So, original Greg Adams changed his name to Gus. Pavel Bure, of course. Martin Jalina, that's another one. It just guts me when I see heart and soul, meat and potato guys go. And he went while he was a good player. And I never understood why they let him go. Because where the team went when they got rid of Courtnall, Ronning, Jalina, and Adams was to the shitter. They went straight to the bottom of the NHL. I got Bertuzzi in here. Bertuzzi, of course, is a polarizing figure, but outside of the punch in the head on Steve Moore, he had a really good career in Vancouver. And I always enjoyed Bertuzzi. I always enjoyed watching him play. He took a lot of stupid penalties, but it was outweighed by the fact that when he was on the ice, teams took notice, and they kind of played a little different and a little scared. It's the only Canuck I've ever seen the teams play scared in front of. And I watched Tiger Williams, and I thought I'm on for my 12 forwards, and I thought, no. Because these are my all-time 12 favorites. Tiger Williams had an intimidation factor, but it was a different era. Bertuzzi could intimidate a team. My honorable mention is Igor Larionov. If Larionov, he's another one that the Canucks had just kept him. I don't understand it. There was no salary cap. Players weren't asking for the moon. I know Larionov went because if the Canucks had kept Larionov, the money would have gone back to the Soviet Union. And Larionov didn't want any more money being transferred back to the Soviet Union and encouraging them to treat other players the way he'd been treated when he was over there. But I really think the Canucks should have worked harder on fixing that because they never got over losing Larionov. They picked up Artem Chubarov as their third-line center after he left, but honestly, and they tried Sherifyanov. I remember they got him for a while, and it's like, geez, you're trying to plug in a Russian for Larionov. This just doesn't work that way. Larionov was a guy who saw the game so well, and he was so smart, and it didn't matter that he didn't score a ton of points. He was so smart and so a step ahead of the game, as he proved when he got to Detroit via San Jose, and he played fantastic in San Jose. And then in Detroit, he wins a couple of Stanley Cups, and now he's in the Hall of Fame, and he is widely regarded as one of the best two-way forwards of all time. And it's just a shame he didn't spend his career in Vancouver. If Larionov had been on the Vancouver Canucks in '94 instead of Nathan Lafayette, they win the Stanley Cup. No offense to Nathan Lafayette. He's not on my shitty team either. Nathan Lafayette, for his skill set, played more games in the NHL than I think he would have, other than the fact that he was so damn determined. But that's the end of my forwards. On the blue line, I've got Kevin McCarthy, Doug Lidster, Sammy Salo, Kevin Bieksa, Jyrki Lume, Dave Babbage, because you got to have that mustache on the blue line. I debated about Babbage and Sneps, which means you got to have a mustache on the blue line. Sneps is nasty, and he played a long time in Vancouver, and I love watching him. But I loved what Babbage brought to the game. I love that when he came to Vancouver, he was kind of already damaged goods, and yet he played so well and he was so smart. And my honorable mention and my biggest heartbreak as a Canucks fan is Paul Reinhart. When Paul Reinhart signed as a free agent in Vancouver out of Calgary, he was already broken. But he was such a good defenseman. He was so smart, and he was so good with the puck. And if anybody asks me why Jeff Brown isn't on my line, I got 2 words for you: Kirk McLean. But Paul Reinhart, in my eyes, if he'd been healthy, if not for injuries, again, all-stars, he could have scored 800-900 points in his career. He'd be mentioned in similar tones as Phil Housley. Like, he could score 20-25 goals a year from the blue line. He was damn good. He just couldn't stay healthy in the end. And he only played, I think I looked it up, it was only 117 games in his career as a Canuck. I was like, oh, man. Because I remember he was so exciting to watch. And even though the Canucks didn't make the playoffs when he was on there, he energized the blue line. And you could see Lidster played better because it's like, I have another defenseman that can pass the puck. Do you see this? I have another guy who can do what I can do. Now I can play a little bit of a different game. And it allowed Butcher to play a little less minutes and a little less pressure on him. And it just... In net, you only have 2 goalies. You can only have 2. Roberto Luongo, Kirk McLean. Luongo's your number 1. McLean's your backup. I watched their entire careers as Vancouver Canucks. I know there's guys who will defend to their graves that Kirk McLean was the best Canucks goaltender ever. He was the greatest Canucks goaltender ever in the 1994 playoffs. If you put the 1994 playoff Kirk McLean on the 2011 Vancouver Canucks, they win the Stanley Cup. I'm not going to deny that. But in terms of their overall careers, Luongo is easily the best. McLean was lightning in a bottle in 94. His stats were great in 92 and 93 as well. Playoff stats weren't great those years. But when he started to break down, it was fast. It was alarming. He went from Canucks everyday starter to, wait, he's in Carolina? He's in Florida? What the hell? What? Rangers? He's backing up Mike Richter? Like, it seemed like overnight to me he went from top goalie in the NHL to nothing. And it was the style of goaltending he did. It was the stand-up goaltending. Once your reflexes slow a little bit and your stand-up, you're done. Because your entire game is based on reflex. And it's not based on positioning as much as reflex. And man, hybrid 6'5" goalies now, the way they position themselves in front of the net, their reflexes can slip a little bit because they're blocking everything but the sun back there. So that's my all-time. If I could pick an all-time greatest Canucks team to put on the ice together, that'd be the team. And that's my opinion. There's no goons on the team. But where it gets funny is when it gets into who made me mad the most. And again, this is in no particular order. There's no honorable mentions on this team because I just did what I could to come up with a roster. You have Rafi Torres up front. Oh, everybody loved Rafi Torres. Oh, he threw a tremendous hit. Oh, what a fantastic hit. And every time I turn around, I'm like, that's dirty. That's dirty. That's borderline. That's borderline. That's dirty. That's a penalty. There's another penalty. Oh, we're up in the game. Oh, Raffi Torres took a penalty. Another penalty. The penalty. And then he'd score like 2 goals like at the end of October. People are like, oh, look, Raffi Torres can score and he can hit. And it's like, penalty, penalty. All I hear in my head is penalty, penalty, penalty. Dirty hit, dirty hit. Jan Bulis. I have never yelled at my television at a player as much as Jan Bulis. When Jan Bulis was the top goal scorer for the Canucks, I died inside. I knew the Canucks were at the bottom, and then this year happened, and they're worse. Jan Bulis, absolutely, without a doubt, the most frustrating Canuck I've ever watched. Jan Hlavac is close. Hlavac, did we trade Krejcik for Hlavac? It doesn't matter. I wouldn't care if we traded Bulis for Hlavac. Hlavac was less than useless. And it was funny because he'd get on a hot streak when he left. He'd get on a hot streak for, I don't know if it was Atlanta or Carolina or wherever he ended up. And guys would come to me and go, oh, that Hlavac, he's looked good last night. I said, don't worry, he'll float the next couple of games. Don't worry, next time you see him on TV, you won't even notice he's out there. And I was usually right. Joseph Baranek. I remember when we got Baranek, and I yelled because I hated Baranek. I hated that the Canucks gave anything up for Baranek. I hated that the Canucks even thought about giving anything up for Joseph Baranek. I laughed at Baranek when he was a Flyer. I laughed at Baranek when he was an Oiler. I cried when he was a Canuck. I laughed again when he was a Penguin. He was the worst skilled forward. And that's the thing. If you are a skilled forward and you can't score, or you have the puck in front of the net and you pass it away, you're going to make me angry. Really angry. Mark Messier. Oh, where would this be without Mark Messier? Where would it be? Where would it be without Mark Messier? Messier came to Vancouver with a lot of hype. I realized when he got here he wasn't the same guy. I think a lot of fans got their hopes up. What I detested Messier for, really, and how much of this was his fault or Keenan's, it doesn't really matter, was the fact that it gutted what was left of the team. A lot of the stuff that I'm mad about on my dream team happened under Messier's watch. Get these guys out of here. Now, whether or not he personally wanted them out, I have no idea. But the optics didn't look good for Messier on that one. Peter Nedved. Nedved was one of the most infuriating players to watch. All the talent in the world. So much talent. And if you had Peter Nedved on your team and you're watching this, you know what I'm talking about. He could skate like the wind. He could skate like the wind and he could score an absolute magic goal. And then just sleep the rest of the game. And then maybe a couple of games after that. And then he put up a couple of goals and an assist. And at the end of the year, you look at his point totals and go, oh, he played all right. And you're thinking, the totals look okay, but he didn't. And eventually those totals slid because his speed slid. And when you're lazy and you think everything's just going to be given to you, and he always had that air about him, then you're going to be frustrating to watch. Harold Druken, through no fault of the kid's own doing, Druken was brought up a first-round draft pick, heralded as potentially being a top 6 forward, a power forward even. Came into the league, he was regarded as a power forward. I got books down the hall I can bring out and say, look, it says power forward in here. But he never came close. I think he ended up in Toronto. Never came close in Toronto either. Could be a great kid. Frustrated the shit out of me every time Druken was on the ice. I'm like, well, we're not scoring now because they put Druken. Did they just put Druken on the power play? Oh, that's a fantastic idea. Speaking of guys you don't put on the power play, Dave Scatchard. Scatchard, who went to the same school as Raffi Torres, the school of penalty, 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 and couldn't put the puck in the ocean. Frustrating to watch. And I remember when he left and he went to New York and he played relatively well for the Islanders. And again, fans came to me because they knew, my friends knew that I hated Scatchard and said he's playing well with the Islanders. I'm like, good for him. I would never take him back. And thankfully, the Canucks never did. And his great play didn't last very long. And eventually, he got a way overly priced contract that wasn't justified in the slightest, and it killed him. It didn't kill him, it killed his career. Alex McGillney. McGillney scored 60 goals as a Canuck. He also scored 16. Or was it 11? The one year, I think he had 11. He was frustrating as shit to watch because he was so inconsistent. You could tell it was his, do I want to play here? Every fucking year. The question in your head was, does McGillney even want to be here? They got McGillney to play with Bure. The idea was, oh my God, McGillney and Bure together, they're going to be unstoppable. No. They were very, very, very stoppable, usually because Bure was injured, or McGillney was injured, or Bure was playing, so McGillney was disinterested, and it just never meshed. And he made me very, very angry regularly because he would follow up great seasons with shit seasons, and he'd have great streaks followed by huge cold streaks, and then he still acted like, I'm worth $7 million a year, and it's like, no, you're not. Then he went to New Jersey. They won a Stanley Cup that year, and Canucks fans went nuts. McGillney won a Stanley Cup in New Jersey, and I kept saying to people, McGillney was not the reason the New Jersey Devils won the Stanley Cup, all right? Don't give McGillney too much credit here. He's going to ask for another $1 million on his contract. Sergio Momesso. Ah, yes, meathead. You can see my comments about Scatchard and Torres. The only comment I made about Momesso, I made this in a video before. I used to have a joke that he would celebrate scoring a goal by going over and punching somebody in the head, preferably somebody on the bench, so he gets thrown out of the game. That was how he played the game. Dixon Ward. I used to say they could probably take him to court for libel or for lying about who he is, for false representation as a hockey player, because he just seemed lost out there. He had a good rookie year, and then after that everything just went kind of kaputs. Kyle Wellwood, oh God, I never liked Kyle Wellwood, and I don't care if he scored goals, because behind his 18 goals were 9 assists. Behind those 9 assists were no hits. Behind those no hits were no hits taken. Because no fucks were given. Because every time somebody came after the puck, his giving fuck ability disappeared, and he'd go. He might as well just drop the stick and look down. They got the puck somehow. You see that? They're really tricky. Really tricky, coach. Really tricky. Everybody's sad we're out of the playoffs. I can go to Timmy's, right? Like he just never seemed to give a shit. All right, blue line now. Michel Petit played for 11 billion teams in his career. Had a decent career after leaving Vancouver, but in Vancouver he was brutal. He was terrible, and he was a top draft pick, and it was criminal that he was a top draft pick. Robert Nordmark. Where do I start with Nordmark? There's an entrance an entry on Sports Argument Wiki. I don't even know if that site exists anymore. I'm not going to look it up because I'm already at 28 minutes. where they have, like, it's all sarcastic Wikipedia entries about players. And for Nordmark, they said in Vancouver, often mistaken that his first name was that fucking, because all that would be heard in Vancouver after a hockey game was that fucking Nordmark instead of his name Robert. I laughed my ass off when I read that a lot, and I still remember it to this day because I lived it. He had skill with the puck, but he had more skill to lose the puck. And lose the puck in the worst spots. And pass it in the worst spots. And at least once a game, you go, where the fuck were you putting that? What the fuck were you thinking? Gretzky's right fucking there. Yeah. Tom Kurvers. I once said to friends of mine in high school, he was the only guy I could think of who could score a hat trick from the blue line and still be a -5 for the game. Great offensive instincts. Worse than useless defensively. Just terrible defensively. Just awful. And I remember when the Canucks traded him, I think it was for cash to the Islanders, and then he had a decent season the year after. I don't remember. Well, he came from the Islanders. I don't remember where he went. I think it was the Whalers even. And again, because if anything, fans up here will come to me. Not on YouTube like back then. We used to physically walk up to each other, talk to each other. And people come up to me and go, Kerber's having a good year. And I'm like, don't worry, he'll fucking blow it. Sure enough. Yuri Slager. Same thing. Decent offensively, defensively, just didn't have it. Dana Merzen. I loved Merzen. But once whatever speed he had, I use that term lightly, once that left him, oh boy. Like, it was brutal to watch. It was bad. And I didn't mention Brent Sopel. He of the mouth guard chewing, mullet wearing variety. Useless. And I liked Sopel the first time he came to Vancouver when they traded to get him back. I was excited until the first game I watched him with Vancouver again, and I was like, wait, why did I like him again? And useless. In net, I have Felix Potvin, who came over with much ballyhoo from Toronto. And you can just score on the glove side, is what I used to say during games. I would watch Potvin, and I would yell out during the game, just shoot it right there, it'll go in. Just put her right there, it'll go in. And my ex used to get so mad at me. She said, there she go, I like Potvin. I'm like, I like Potvin too. Put it right there, it'll go in. And then it would. Every shot would be in the same spot every game. And it's like, just because his reflexes sucked. And his nickname was the Cat for fast reflexes. So, Felix got frustrating, and then he went to LA and he had one good year. And the Cat, he's coming back to haunt the Canucks. I was like, no, he isn't. He's going to shit the bed in the playoffs. And then he did. And because just put it over his glove. The glove's right there. Put it over his glove. He will not save it. He doesn't realize pucks can go over the glove. He thinks the glove is where the net ends. And anything over here doesn't exist. And he'll just stand there. And it'll go in, and he'll go, and it didn't go under. Well, it didn't go in, so it can't have gone in the net. It must have just bounced off the boards and gone through the mesh. I want a replay on that, because there's nothing above this glove. Nobody has scored above this glove in the last 10 years. And in reality, every fucking puck on Potvin went glove side right over, right in here. Every fucking puck. And sadly, for my backup, I have Troy Gamble. And I have Troy Gamble not because he was a bad goaltender, because he was a fantastic goaltender. I thought about Kluche, but you know what? Kluche takes a lot of shit. And he brought the team up at a time when they were in the dregs. And his career was in the shitter. So I'm not going to give Kluche any more hell. And he's done a decent job as a goaltending coach for the Canucks. But Troy Gamble, concussions, man. He was such a promising young goalie. I remember when he came up. And once I watched him play some games, I was like, this kid is really good. At some point, we may have to trade Kirk McLean, because this kid is good. Really good. And then that first concussion hit. And once you start getting those concussions, man, like, it's freaky. Like, he would get them in warm-ups. And, I used to make jokes about it, because you got it after a while. But it's one of those things that I put Gamble in there as my... But it wasn't a yell at the screen like, shit, you should have saved that. It was like, fuck, he's hurt again. No. You'd watch him make a great save, and you'd be like, he's back. And then he'd get a knee in the head, and you're like, fuck, he's out. So I support Troy Gamble screen. So that's my all-stars and all scream team for the Vancouver Canucks. So you got a new video to vote down. Thumbs down seems to be popular enough with my lineup, even though Virtanen's not in the lineup. Let me fucking explain why Virtanen's not in my lineup for next year. Virtanen's a kid, okay? If you push a kid what happens is he settles into a bottom six role. Yeah, Virtanen could come through this and be a 20, 30, 40 goal scorer somewhere down the road. Or he could develop into a 15-goal guy like a Steve Bernier. If he doesn't get top 6 minutes, and he's not going to get them in the NHL unless he develops some huge mean streak and 20 pounds of extra bulk over the summer, he is going to end up being pigeonholed. He's into season 2. This is when you stick him in the minors. You give him half a season. It's not punishment. I'm not saying he's not good. I'm saying he has the potential to be fantastic. And if you give a guy half a season in the minors, look what it did for Nylander. Look what it did for all these Toronto prospects. Now, the Leafs are like, oh, we got all these prospects. No. You got a GM that gets how it works. You develop your prospects in the American League first. Look at Anthony Mantha in Detroit. If Anthony Mantha was in Vancouver, he'd already be in season 3. He'd already be on the verge of being a bust. Because Mantha hasn't played very well for the Grand Rapids Griffins yet. But he showed signs. And this is how it works. So by me saying Virtanen shouldn't be in the opening lineup, it's not, oh God, Virtanen, no, we can't go without Virtanen. Yeah, you can. The team's not going to be in the playoffs this year anyways. Putting Virtanen in Utica for half a season probably is a good idea. Travis Green's a fantastic coach. Travis Green is going to be the coach of the Vancouver Canucks once time has settled and we're looking at replacing Desjardins, which I don't think is going to be that long off. I don't think it's going to be that far from now when Desjardins is out of here. It could be the middle of this season. So why not send Virtanen down? Why not let the kid be a play on the farm? This is one season that could turn him into a superstar rather than keeping him in Vancouver, putting him on the fucking fourth line, have him play 10 minutes a game, and watch the other 50. It's a dangerous game you're playing when it comes to a power forward, because that burgeoning power forward with skill can become your bottom 6 guy, your glue guy. Maybe he's your team captain someday, but he's certainly not a 25, 30 goal scorer, and he's certainly not the guy who's going to win you the Stanley Cup. And Virtanen has that potential. So if people want to get pissed at me because Virtanen's not in that lineup, awesome. There's a reason. You can't rush kids. In my next video, I'm going to detail all the fucking kids that have been ruined by being rushed. Gilbert Brule is one that comes to mind immediately. Look what happened. Columbus brought him up, number 5 draft pick, fucked him right out of his entire NHL career. Never recovered from being brought up as a rookie and quietly brought along. Some guys it works. For a majority, you either become a glue guy or you're out of the NHL. So yeah, Golden State's up by 27. 29. I'm going to go out on a limb and say with 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, up 91-62, they're probably going to beat Cleveland. Be great for Golden State. Apparently they're moving to San Francisco. What the hell is it with California teams just magically moving? San Diego, we're going to go to LA. And Oakland, oh, we're just going to move wherever. It doesn't matter. We're the Raiders. We don't stick around anywhere for very long. The Rams are back. Like, what the hell is it with California? Anyways, thanks for watching. And next video won't be Canucks centered. Promise.